some time now, there has been a sinister virus going around. And if you happen to catch it, you could be in a lot of trouble. It attacks people when they wake up, when they suddenly open their eyes one day. It goes after their memory cells. And if not treated early, it could lead to an untimely death. Here are some cases that the specialists have documented over the years.
From my close-up inspection, there's no evidence of a plane having crashed anywhere near the Pentagon. The only site is the actual site of the building that's crashed in, and as I said, the only pieces left that you can see are small enough that you could pick up in your hand. There are no large tail sections, wing sections, a fuselage, nothing like that anywhere around, which would indicate that the entire plane crashed into the side of the Pentagon. I was there. I saw the wreckage. I photographed it with my digital camera. One of the pictures I took shows a yellow fire hose stretched across the heliport, surrounded by thousands of shards of metal from the plane. Another shows glass that appears to be from the cockpit, and another is a part of the fuselage with the colors of American Airlines.
Nothing to indicate that there was even anybody on the plane.
I said that I stopped being a coroner after about 20 minutes because it was perfectly clear what the cause and manner of death was going to be. It was a plane crash, but yet it was a homicide because the terrorists hijacked the plane and killed the people. So and the terrorists committed suicide.
And the firefighter that took us down kept saying, "Do not look down." And I kept saying, "Why?" He said, "Do not look down." And we were stepping over people. And you know you can feel when you're stepping over people. I said it felt like I was stepping over them, but I never saw them. And, you know, that's the way they portrayed me, and I didn't appreciate that, so I told them to pull my interview.
Vind je niet dan?
Ja, je ziet het, de onderste verdiepingen gaan eerst.
Ja, en de rest zat er gewoon in. Dus dit is controlled demolition.
Zeker weten.
Zeker weten. Er is nagesprongen. Dit is in opdracht gebeurd. Dit heeft een team gedaan van experts.
Maar dit is ook op 11 september gebeurd.
Dezelfde dag?
Dezelfde dag.
Dezelfde dag? Weet je dat zeker?
Ja.
Was het zeker weten de 11e? Dat kan geen waar zijn.
7 uur nadat de World Trade Center naar beneden viel.
Ja? Hebben ze hard gewerkt?
I have no intention of letting anyone buy me off or make any kind of a deal with me.
And you're not planning to commit suicide?
And I'm not planning to commit suicide either.
The fact that you're so visible really protects you going on Larry King and other big shows, but you want to put it on record that you're not planning to commit suicide?
No, I'm not planning to commit suicide. I'm planning to go into court on April 7th if indeed we do have the trial, and I plan on defending myself vigorously, and I plan on exposing the government in ways that, I do not think they want me to expose them.
When she went outside, she noticed the three-wheel bicycle had been moved that was normally kept in the shed. Upon entering the shed located on the west side of the residence, 𝗦𝗵𝗿𝗲𝗍 discovered her daughter, Deborah, had apparently hung herself using a nylon rope from a metal beam on the ceiling of the shed. She then called 911.
Philip Marshall was an author, but he was also a commercial airline pilot. He flew contract missions for the Central Intelligence Agency, and this was in the early 80s. He, as a pilot, and he did fly some of the planes that went into the World Trade Center. So he flew the 767, 757. So he was very familiar with these two aircraft, and he just looked at this as a pilot. Phil Marshall had always told friends that with what he was writing, he had to be careful for personal safety. He always locked his door. The neighbor walked in, saw Phil Marshall lying on the floor on his back with a bullet hole which had bled profusely on the left side of his head. And this is very interesting because Phil Marshall was right-handed. The gun was lying underneath Phil's body. His son and his daughter were found shot on like a sofa, which was a U-shaped sofa, and they would, one was on one long part of the U, and opposite on the other part was the other child. The pet dog, which was a Shih Tzu, which was a little white yappy dog, was found dead, shot to death in the bedroom. First thing I noticed were a bunch of empty banker's boxes at his front door. The house had been basically cleaned out. The banker boxes were interesting because either they were left over from hauling some files out, or they were brought there and they said, well, we've got all our files, we'll leave these there. Or there were files in those boxes that had been removed. The computer had been ripped out of the wall, so the wires were still there, but it had been, you know, you could see where it had been yanked from the cable.
I asked him how his week had been, and he said his week had been tough. The Vice President Cheney called me in and told me to get on their bandwagon or there'd be serious ramifications in Minnesota, and to stop sticking my nose into the 9/11.
He would have called for a vigorous investigation of 9/11.
McCabe from the FBI said that there was no suggestion, or they had no intelligence or indication of any kind of terrorist activity. Can that be ruled out at this point?
Agent McCabe told me the same thing last night because I met with him when I got here. He said they'd had no intelligence to suggest that, and they saw nothing in the wreckage to suggest that.
And the FBI's report that there were no signs of or indications of terrorist involvement is frankly quite absurd given the charred remnants of the plane after 7.5 hours of burning. It was impossible to know what cause could have brought that plane down.
Why is the staff memo, which triggers the vote of the board on whether or not to hold a public hearing, why is that confidential?
Sir, sometimes there are things in that are sensitive.
This is how conspiracy theories get born, you know?
And we heard a couple of pop sounds.
And I had heard gunshots, as many as 6, coming from the direction in which Senator Wellstone's plane had entered and later crashed.
The most fiercely burnt part of the plane was the fuselage. The wings contained the fuel.
The fuselage was destroyed by a very high temperature fire, and because again, if you look at the metal pieces here, they clearly were in a molten state. A hydrocarbon fire would never melt this stuff down like this. Well, it takes a pretty high temperature to melt down some of these alloys.
In all of